Okay, the big test on Wednesday is on quadratics, and more specifically, we have this retake a lot of you are doing on the last quiz we had because it was kind of tough. And one of the big things that was on that quiz was discriminant. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And do you know where the discriminant is? If you know where it is, stare at it. Are you staring there? Good, because that's the discriminant. Now, what does discriminant do for you? It tells you whether you got one answer, two answers, or no answers at all. How could you possibly have no answers to a quadratic? Yes. If this is negative, there's a negative underneath here, you won't have any real answers, but you would have what kind of answers? Imaginaries. You'd have two imaginaries if you had an answer underneath there. What if there is nothing underneath there? What if b squared minus 4ac is 0? If it equals 0, then there's how many answers? One answer. If it equals a positive number, then you're going to get two answers like normal. We already talked about if it's a negative, you will get two imaginaries or no reals. All right. Guys that were taking the test, you need to be done now. So sign your pass, and bring it up, and turn your test in. You've done your best. Okay, have a good day. All right, so the next thing, I want you to actually do that for this equation. Figure out b squared minus 4ac for that. All right. I hope you were doing 6 squared is 36 minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 8. So this is 36 minus 8 times 4 is 32. And what would that be? So it's got an answer, doesn't it? It's got how many answers? 2. And are they real or imaginary? 2 reals. All right. So let's talk about something else. What if we were going to give you a real world problem? These are the hardest kind. And we said y equals negative 6, or negative 1/2 is usually how we start. And we'll say 32. I'm dyslexic today. Try that again. 32 t squared plus 10t minus, no, let's say plus 5. Do you know what that equation I just wrote down means? Okay, then what's the velocity? 10. Is it in feet or meters? Feet, because this was in feet, so I knew it was in feet. If it had been in meters, that 32 would have been a what? 9.8, and then we'd know we were in meters. Okay, and the last thing is that 5. What's that 5 tell me? The height, also known as the y-intercept. So we know it starts 5 feet off the ground, it goes up, and it comes back down. How come I know it goes up and down instead of going like this? Because there's a negative in front. All right. This kind means you have a, this kind with a negative means you have a maximum. Okay? So if it has a negative, it's going to look like this, a frowny face. That makes sense. You're negative, you're going to be frowning. This kind would be like this, positive x squared plus blah, 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 blah. If it's positive in front, then it's going to be like a smiley face. All right. Yes. Okay. And then this kind has a minimum, and that kind has a maximum. All right. Moving on. I'm going to give you a velocity and a height, and then I want you to write me an equation. Let's say that we had a pterodactyl, and it is taking off. No, actually, it has to be launched. All right, so it's being kicked by a brontosaurus. Okay, so he kicks the pterodactyl off of the ground, and brontosaurus are quite big, so we'll say that he's able to kick it at 45 meters per second. You should be able to write me the equation already, just from that. So the pterodactyl was on the ground, indicating what its height was, and it gets kicked at 45 meters per second. So do you have y equals negative 1/2 to start your equation? Good. And then since I said meters, what should you use? 9.8. And then it's t squared. And then the velocity comes next, which was what? 45t. And then the last thing is what? Yeah, you could say plus 0. You don't even have to have it there at all if you don't want it. But that's the height, how far off the ground it was. Okay, so you're able to write pretty complex equations now. That's kind of cool. All right, so let's say they had this one and they asked you to, let's simplify it a little bit. Let's say it simplifies down to this. And let's leave it like that. It was a problem kind of like that on the last test. And then they said, what's the highest it ever went? As soon as they say what's the highest it ever went, what part of this graph are they asking for? The vertex of it. So how do you find a vertex? You use complete the square. So don't do this one yet, but let's just start with an easier one. Let's say it has like this. X squared plus 8x minus 5. Do complete the square on this one. Remember that? Do it. See where I am. All right, so we do half of 8 is 4, and I go 4 squared is 16 and 16. And then I can go two things that are exactly the same, x, and plus, and then the square root of 16 is 4. There we go. And then these guys together make negative 21. Then I'm going to call this x plus 4 squared and get rid of the first one. And there I have it. I have figured out it's what? It's vertex. All right, in my case, the vertex is at negative 4, comma, negative 21. Now that would be a little weird because it would be like that. And this is a parabola that goes like this. Okay, so that would not be the kind where it's the find the highest kind of problem. But on this one, it's negative in the front. And therefore, it will be one of the kind where you can find the highest. Yes? In this case, we don't have a maximum. There is no such thing. We have a minimum. The minimum would be negative 4, negative 21. And this is the time. And again, this couldn't be a real world problem. But it might be like how low the submarine went or that kind of thing. All right, back to this one, which could be a projectile motion kind of a problem. Would you try the complete the square on that? Definitely harder. Different level. Got to factor out the negative 25. And if the question is, how high did the ball go? And this would be where you'd be completing the square.